Good evening, councilors and the public. This meeting is being broadcast live on the City of Keene YouTube channel and Spectrum Channel 1302. The video is also streamed on the city's website and is posted by the end of the next business day, barring any technical difficulties. If you'd like to receive an electronic city council packet to reference while viewing future broadcasts, please contact the city clerk's office during business hours or go to the city's website and subscribe to the city's meetings email list. The agenda is also accessible from any mobile device. So good evening. Thank you for coming back strong after a few-week break. Good to see you all. And I'll recognize Councilor Tobin for the Pledge of Allegiance. To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Turn to Councilor Greenwald for a motion on acceptance of the minutes.
Thank you, Your Honor. I move to adopt the minutes of the August 1, 2024 meeting as presented.
Second.
Motion made, seconded. Any comments from councilors on the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor, motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Kate M. Bosley.
Here.
Laura E. Tobin.
Here.
Michael J. Remy. Randy L. Filio.
Here.
Robert C. Williams.
Here.
Edward J. Haas.
Here.
Philip M. Jones.
Present.
Andrew M. Madison.
Here.
And Chris E. Roberts.
Here.
Jacob R. Favalise.
Here.
Brian J. Lake.
Here.
Catherine I. Workman.
Here.
Bettina A. Chadbourne.
Here.
Thomas F. Powers.
Here.
Mitchell H. Greenwald.
Here.
So given a few weeks off, we got quite a few announcements for the councilors. First off, we've got a belated happy birthday to offer first to Councilor Roberts, who celebrated his birthday on August 9th. Happy birthday, Councilor. And belated happy birthday to Councilor Tom Powers on August 12th.
How old are you?
It's not in the script. And a belated happy birthday to Councilor Brian Lake on August 19th.
Your Honor, if I may,
You may.
it is appropriate at the birth date of the mayor to present a proclamation. I have several pages to read.
This could be fun.
Whereas Jay was born at an early age in Chicago and migrated to Keene. And whereas I could go on for another 20 minutes, but looking at this agenda, I will do you all a favor and just go right to, therefore, by acclamation, let us wish him a happy birthday and many more to come.
Thank you, Councilor Greenwald. Oh, my. Oh, well.
And there is one other
And
gift.
be careful.
No, there's one other gift that I will be giving him at a different date. He and I traveled to Scandinavia. There was not an awful lot of herring, but I got a nice little jar of herring for him. Forget the jelly beans, the herring.
Yeah. To be put to good use. Thank you, Councilor. All right, some other announcements. The annual Fire Prevention Parade is going to be held on Sunday, October 6th. The parade starts at 1 p.m. The reviewing stand is on Main Street at the intersection with Railroad Street, and I invite the councilors to join me. The parade will end at Keene's Central Fire Station, so for the public, I know this is a fun event to stand, watch at the various departments from the region, come and join the Keene Fire Department in this recognition of their service to our communities. So hope to see councilors there October 6th. The annual inspection dinner will be held on Thursday, October 10th at 6 p.m. on the apparatus floor of the Keene Central Station. The Finance, Organization, and Personnel Committee meeting for that evening will be canceled, so the council and staff may attend the dinner, October 10th. In preparation for the city clerk's retirement on April 30th, 2025, a tough date in our annals, the city council authorized the mayor to negotiate a contract with Deputy City Clerk Terry Hood to assume the role of city clerk on May 1st, 2025. I'm happy to report those negotiations were successfully concluded, and a formal press release will be issued closer to her assuming the position of Keene City Clerk. Relative to the city attorney's candidate search, a little update on that. The application deadline for candidates is September 23rd at midnight. That's this Sunday. And you should expect in your city email in this coming week to receive an email about how city councilors will be able to access those applications, and you're asked to review those credentials prior to our meeting on October 3rd. I want to also share with you events associated with the Historical Society of Cheshire County hosting an exhibit of Keene at 150 years. You may remember in May we noted that it is 150 years since the city of Keene was formally chartered. That exhibit will be on display at the Historical Society of Cheshire County from October 22nd, 2024 through December 31st of the same year. So you've got a card in front of you. There will be an opening reception for the public on October 25th, and that's going to occur from 4:30 to 6. Councilors are invited to participate in that. And then on November 8th, something not on the card in front of you, but on November 8th at the Historical Society, the city will be hosting something tentatively titled Keene in Perspective and Retrospective. So Keene's 4 living mayors are all available on November 8th and will participate in the retrospective portion of the presentation. The presentation will begin at 4:30 with Alan Rumbrill providing the Keene in Perspective portion, a review of how the city has evolved pre-1874 to 2024. After about a 30-minute presentation by Alan and 10 to 15 minutes of questions and answers from the audience, the program will break into a panel discussion with the 4 mayors. I'm very appreciative of the city's collaboration with the Historical Society on this project. They've been extremely accommodating in identifying the photos that are appropriate for each decade over that 150-year period. Those placards will be on display over that 2-month period. I hope you're excited about the November 8th program and that you'll stop into the Historical Society on October 25th or sometime before November 8th to view the exhibit of photographs depicting Keene's growth from 1870 to the 2020s. In the meantime, I'd also encourage that you pause in the City Hall lobby to view the efforts of the City Clerk's office relative to displays of Keene's transition from a town to a city. In addition to some artifacts, the display also includes several placards with information such as the voters in town actually were reluctant to authorize Keene to become a city, and they actually rejected the charter amendment 3 times, in 1865, 1869, and again in 1870. Finally, having adopted the charter amendment in 1874, which created a Board of Aldermen and Common Council, and that bicameral form of government continued until 1950, when another charter amendment created the city manager, city councilor form of government that we have today. So, yes, some things in the offing that are hopefully on your schedule you can make. And
Honor.
Counselor Madison.
One more announcement. This weekend is the annual Source to Sea cleanup, sponsored by the Cheshire County Conservation District and the Connecticut River Conservancy. If you're interested in participating and don't mind getting dirty and hauling trash out of the river, come join me at Beaver Brook at 9 a.m. on Saturday. Alternatively, you can go to the Ashwaylet River Park at 9 a.m. tomorrow or 9 a.m. on Saturday. Trash bags, gloves, everything provided, just be prepared to get wet and dirty.
Thanks for that announcement. Okay, seeing no other announcements, I'd like to ask Michael Winograd, a member of the city's Energy and Climate Change Committee, to come forward and receive a proclamation from the city. Good evening, Michael.
Good evening.
So a proclamation from the City of Keene, whereas clean energy and energy conservation are important to Keene's energy future as we reduce pollution and reliance on diminishing supply of non-renewable energy sources, and whereas the Council of Keene has adopted goals and a plan to move the city and community to 100% renewable sources of energy for electricity by 2030, and 100% renewable sources for thermal and transportation needs by 2050. And whereas the City of Keene's Community Power Program enables the city to purchase power on behalf of Keene residents and businesses and source more energy from renewables. And whereas the City of Keene and its residents, businesses, and other organizations are making great strides to reduce energy usage and transition to renewable sources, and that should be celebrated. And whereas the City of Keene Energy and Climate Change Committee, in conjunction with the Hannah Grimes Center for Entrepreneurship, offers one-on-one coaching sessions related to commercial solar installations, energy efficiency, and sustainability. And whereas residents and business owners of Keene can contribute to our sustainable energy progress by learning about and participating in energy-related events and programs throughout the months of September and October, which are listed online in one word, monadnocksustainabilityhub.org. And whereas the City of Keene Energy and Climate Change Committee, Clean Energy Team, Monadnock Sustainability Hub, and other public and private groups and individuals have worked together to promote Keene Clean Energy Team's Button-Up event on Wednesday, September 25th from 6:30 to 8 p.m. at the Keene Recreation Center. And then on September 28th, the Monadnock Clean Energy Fair will be held that Saturday, September 28th, from 11 to 4 p.m. at the Dillon Hopkins Airport in Keene. And whereas October is National Energy Awareness Month, now therefore I, as mayor, do hereby proclaim the month of October National Energy Awareness Month in Keene and encourage all citizens to celebrate by participating in energy and climate change education and awareness activities. Signed this day, September 19th.
Thank you very much. Mayor.
Thanks for receiving it. Thanks for your service.
Thank you very much.
And I'd like to ask Justin Putzel to join me. With Justin tonight is his family and Deputy Chief Greg Seymour. And thanks for being here to be part of this recognition of whereas Justin Putzel began his career with the Keene Fire Department on the 18th of February in 2007 as a call firefighter, certified as a paramedic. He was hired on the 22nd of January 17th as a probationary firefighter and was promoted to firefighter paramedic on the 4th of February 2019, and then on this 22nd of January 2020 as a firefighter emergency medical technician. And whereas as a valuable asset to the department capable in all aspects of his job. Justin made sure to adhere to the fundamentals, maintaining proficiency in firefighting and emergency medical services, always engaging in drills, specialized training to provide the best service he can to the community with his life experience, giving him an advanced level of acknowledgement of many of today's emergency medical challenges. And whereas with a plethora of knowledge and a degree in emergency management systems, Justin took on higher workloads and a level of responsibility whenever the only paramedic on shift, making accurate assessments and sound decisions regarding the patient's condition, and thinking one step ahead regarding any resources needed to improve the prognosis, whether calling for air medical transport or activating a pre-established alert at the hospital, all combining to make him a superior paramedic. And whereas described as charismatic, he enjoyed teaching new members of the department how to accomplish the varied tasks involved in keeping the team together, always with a positive attitude and a high work ethic. And whereas conditioned to the rigors of responding to emergency situations and with good critical thinking skills, Justin remained a clear-headed decision maker in the face of stressful situations, never overwhelmed, and a calming presence to those less experienced, an asset to any company in a dynamic environment. And whereas other ways in which Justin was valued, where his being an all-hazard responder, his above-average understanding of the department's copious amounts of equipment and apparatus, his always professional and well-structured documentation, his familiarity with some of the administrative responsibilities such as fire alarm systems, permitting, and property records, and his being a two-time recipient of the American Red Cross's Hometown Hero Award, whereas Justin qualified to retire on the 20th of June 2024 with almost 17 and a half years of honorable service to the City of Keene. Now therefore be it resolved that the City of Keene and the City Council hereby extends its sincere thanks to Justin H. Putzel for his dedication to the City of Keene and wishes Justin the very best for his retirement years. Be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution, properly framed, be presented to Justin in appreciation for his years of service to the city and the greater Monadnock region. And for the photogenic moment, let's present the plaque. Thank you very much, Justin.
He looks too young to retire. Yeah, a little titanium and some plastic in there. We're getting there. Thank you. Thank you, folks.
Thank you, Justin.
Thank you.
And I'd like to next ask James Rinker to come forward as we recognize you, James, for the New Hampshire Press Association Award that you've recently received.
Thank
Nice
so
to see
much.
you.
Yeah, you too.
James is a longtime resident of the Monadnock region. James Rinker was born in Westmoreland and raised in Keene. He's a proud Keene High School grad and chose to continue his studies at Keene State College. James joined the Keene Sentinel in June 2021 as an intern and became a full-time newsroom member in January of 2022, starting as the paper's first digital community engagement journalist. He stepped into his role as the education and business reporter in April of 2024. James was a 2023-2024 Complicating the Narrative Fellow through the Solutions Journalism Network. So he was a fellow through that network, reporting on rural LGBTQ plus healthcare access and the politicization of gender-affirming care in the state of New Hampshire. His work during the fellowship has since been recognized by the New Hampshire Press Association and the New England Newspaper and Press Association. And I've got to say, in the shadow of the Sentinel's 225th anniversary and the Pride Festival that just took place, this award is even more meaningful to link your reporting awards to those two citywide celebrations. Most recently, James received the Dennis Jose Memorial Award from the New Hampshire Press Association. The award honors a New Hampshire journalist who makes a unique personal sacrifice in pursuit of covering an event or issue of significance to readers. Rinker was honored for his work reporting on gender-affirming care in the state through deeply personal columns and through news stories on state legislative efforts to affect Granite Staters in the trans and greater LGBTQ plus community. This Saturday, James is traveling to Providence, Rhode Island, to accept an award from the New England Newspaper and Press Association for his reporting over the past year on LGBTQ rights and the LGBTQ community and gender-affirming care in New Hampshire. The annual Public Occurrences Award are given to the very best work that New England newspapers produce each year, and the awards are named after the first newspaper published in America in 1690, and the awards were established in 1990. James' editor, Annika Clark, who's here tonight, writes about James that he's come a long way since joining the Sentinel team as an intern when he was a Keene State student in June of 2021. Both his former role as digital community engagement journalist and in his current role as the Sentinel's business and education reporter, James makes it a point to connect with people and stories in the region where he has lived all his life in service of meaningful journalism. We're so fortunate to have him in our newsroom. James' work doesn't stop when he leaves the newsroom. He's a member of the Greater Keene Rotaract Club, participating in local service projects that benefit children and families in need. And in 2 weeks, James is running the Clarence DeMar Marathon, wish him well, as a team member of the Team DeMar to raise money for the Unsung Heroes Ken Jew Scholarship given by the Elm City Rotary Club each year. As the City Council continues to recognize Keene residents that earn recognition within and beyond our region, it's my pleasure to present you, James, with this symbolic key to the city and wish you continued success.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. Offer you if you wish.
Oh, yeah. I know you've got a long night ahead of you, so I won't take up too much time and make it a little bit shorter. But thank you all so much. Never in my wildest dreams would I imagine a little kid from Westmoreland who grew up on Route 9, where I actually just drove from, to be recognized by the city that I live in and that I love. I'm so honored, and I express my just utmost gratitude. Thank you so much. I love my job. I love this region, and can't wait to do what I can for as long as I can.
So it's also seldom that I'd get a chance to embarrass the editor of the Keene Sentinel, but Sean Burke, if you want to just stand, maybe you don't need to stand, but when he does stand, he's easy to find. Sean, thanks for being here, and Annika in support of James. Moving on to the next portion of our meeting on nominations, turn to the city clerk.
This evening, we are confirming the mayor's nominations, first to the Library Board of Trustees, a Sam Temple and a Garthik Goda. Your packet tonight has a corrected term of expiration. It is June 30, 2027. We inadvertently referred to a December date in their original nomination. And to the Partner City Committee and Eric Weisenberger with a term to expire December 31, 2024.
Councilor Greenwald for a motion.
Thank you, Your Honor. I move to confirm the nominations.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Greenwald, seconded by Councilor Bosley. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Counselor Bosley,
Yes.
and Counselor Tobin,
Yes.
Counselor Remy,
Yes.
Counselor Filio.
Yes.
Counselor Williams.
Yes.
Counselor Haas.
Yes.
Counselor Jones.
Yes.
Counselor Madison.
Yes.
Counselor Roberts.
Yes.
Counselor Favelis.
Yes.
Counselor Lake.
Yes.
Counselor Workman.
Yes.
Counselor Chadbourne.
Yes.
Counselor Powers.
Yes.
Counselor Greenwald.
Yes.
So those nominations are placed in nomination for the next meeting. We have one nomination for confirmation.
And it would be for Medard Kopczynski to serve on the Congregate Living and Social Services Licensing Board. And this would be a term to expire December 31, 2027.
And Counselor Greenwald for a motion.
Thank you. I move to confirm the nomination.
Second.
And moved by Counselor Greenwald and seconded by Counselor Bosley. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Counselor Bosley.
Yes.
Counselor Tobin.
Yes.
Counselor Remy.
Yes.
Counselor Filio.
Yes.
Counselor Williams.
Yes.
Counselor Haas.
Us. Yes.
Thank you. Counselor Jones.
Yes, also.
Counselor Madison.
Yes.
Counselor Roberts.
Yes.
Counselor Favelis.
Yes.
Counselor Lake.
Yes.
Counselor Workman.
Yes.
Counselor Chad.
Yes.
Counselor Powers.
Yes.
Counselor Greenwald.
Yes.
Moving to communications, we have several.
Right, we'll start off with a communication from Counselor Remy. He's looking for the city council to consider either the modification or the rescission of a council policy. It's R 2028. It's dealing with street and utility requirements and standards.
And we'll refer that letter to Planning, Licenses, and Development Committee.
And a communication from Charter Communications. It's a request to install a concrete pad and utility cabinet at 55 Roxbury Street.
And that, too, will be referred to Planning, Licenses, and Development Committee.
And we have a communication from John Loveland. You might recall that he's written to the council over several months regarding the downtown project, and this particular communication is relative to bike lane designs.
So I recommend that we accept that as informational and ask that counselors on the MSFI committee take a look at that in advance of their meeting next week.
And our final public communication is from the Greater Monadnock Collaborative Board of Directors, and it is request to use city property. It's Central Square and Railroad Square, and it's for the 30th anniversary celebration of the release of the film Jumanji.
And that license will be referred to Planning, Licenses, and Development Committee as well. Moving on to council committee reports.
First, we have a report from the Planning, Licenses, and Development Committee, and it actually involves the resolution that, from Councilor Remy, that we just referred to committee for possible modification. The report is dealing with the authorization to issue a building permit for the property at 270 Beaver Street, and the committee is recommending that the council authorize the issuance of this building permit for 270 Beaver Street.
Councilor Bosley for a motion.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. So before we can move forward tonight, we do have this council policy that is sort of a roadblock to us going any further. So I'm going to move to suspend the resolution R-2000-28, which would prevent the consideration of this request.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Bosley, seconded by Councilor Jones. And just as a recall, this would take a 2/3 majority to suspend the rules.
And if I may, Your Honor, just speak to this a little bit. So this resolution, you guys have all heard members of PLD discuss, myself, and now Councilor Remy's letter that came in. This is an antiquated resolution that's prevented us from, or hung up another downtown building project. And it really does need to be revised, and I'm hoping that you guys will allow us to move forward with a conversation on the greater matter tonight by suspending this.
Further comments, councilors? Seeing none, clerk call the roll.
Councilor Bosley?
Yes.
Councilor Tobin?
Yes.
Councilor Remy?
Yes.
Councilor Filio?
Yes.
Councilor Williams?
Yes.
Councilor Haas?
Yes.
Councilor Jones?
Yes.
Councilor Madison?
Yes.
Councilor Roberts?
Yes.
Councilor Favelis?
Yes.
Councilor Lake?
Yes.
Councilor Workman?
Yes.
Councilor Chad?
Yes.
Councilor Powers?
Yes.
Councilor Greenwald?
Yes.
And the motion carries unanimously. Councilor Bosley?
I move to carry out the intent of the committee report.
Second.
And moved by Councilor Bosley and seconded by Councilor Jones. Councilor Bosley for the committee.
Thank you. So this is getting to the meat of this request by this petitioner. They were looking for the council to approve a building permit on the site on Beaver Street. This is a site that the city recently auctioned off, and I believe is a term of the sale. They're looking for this building permit so that the sale can go to completion. This isn't a site that has never had a house on it. It is the old building site of a small home, and it has already held a driveway at one time. And we looked over the use of that stretch of Class 6 road that's there. The driveway would actually be coming off the corner of Beaver Street, but the property owner is well aware of their expectation of maintenance of that Class 6 road if they're gonna need to have any use of it over the winter time. The committee was really excited to see somebody who wanted to move forward with a smaller style, energy efficient home that could be potentially used as a model for other things to come in the community. And we would really like to see you guys approve this as well as the committee. Thanks.
Further comments from councilors? Seeing none, would the clerk call the roll?
This could be a
Sorry,
show.
this can be a show of hands. All right, all those in favor of the motion as presented? Looks like the motion carries unanimously.
Going on, a second planning licenses and development committee report, this one dealing with the council's rules of order and potential amendments. These amendments are separated out, anticipating a separate discussion and vote as we proceed from one to the next. And we'll start off with, on a roll call vote, the Planning Licenses and Development Committee recommends the adoption of amendment number 1. This one is dealing with special meetings and workshop meetings.
Councilor Bosley,
Move to carry out the intent of the committee report.
Second.
moved by Councilor Bosley, seconded by Councilor Jones. Councilor Bosley for the committee.
Yes, so you're gonna get to hear quite a bit from me over the next several items on our agenda. I'm gonna try to keep it brief and just go over the highlights. We've all had a workshop on a lot of these items, and we're all pretty well aware of what some of these amendments look like. But I'm gonna talk about a few things that PLD did tweak, and in this particular one, we are basically codifying the process of how we call workshops and special meetings, and we're also looking at like what type of action can come out of those. And the members of PLD used some math to come up with a small change that I think really makes a lot of sense here. We went from 7 members of council calling these to 6, and that prevents any committee from having a quorum of councilors that would be involved in the process of having to call a special meeting or a workshop in the absence of the mayor. So that made a lot of sense to us, and it lowered that threshold a little bit. And then coming out of a workshop, the only actionable official thing that could happen is that an item would be sent back to a committee, and that follows with the policy that we all have sort of moved in the direction of. So I think PLD really came up with a clean version of this, and I hope you guys will support it.
Further comments on Amendment 1 relative to special meetings and workshops? Seeing none, this will take a 2/3 majority on a roll call.
Counselor Bosley?
Yes.
Counselor Tobin?
Yes.
Counselor Remy?
Yes.
Counselor Filio?
Yes.
Counselor Williams?
Yes.
Counselor Haas?
Yes.
Counselor Jones?
Yes.
Counselor Madison?
Yes.
Counselor Roberts?
Yes.
Counselor Favelis?
Yes.
Counselor Lake?
Yes.
Counselor Workman?
Yes.
Counselor Chadbourne?
Yes.
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
Counselor Greenwald?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. We move on to the Second Amendment.
And the committee is recommending the adoption of Section 11, right of floor.
And Councilor Bosley, would you?
Move to carry out the intent of the committee report.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Bosley and seconded by Councilor Jones. Councilor Bosley for the committee.
So this one, there was a lot of continued conversation about the best wording to use in this amendment, and PLD settled on adding the term "if able" to allow for a member of the city council to determine, without needing to request any sort of approval, if they were able to stand in the moment, and if not, the member could remain seated without any public discussion, which left the councilor free from any public awareness of any sort of indiscretion that might be occurring at the time.
Okay, motion is made, seconded. So any further discussion from council members, Councilor Roberts, Councilor Workman?
I wholeheartedly agree with this because I feel it kind of embarrassing. I've suffered 4 strokes, and by the time I get up, the rest of the council is already sitting back down, and I feel like, well, people are watching me, or people may assume that I'm just don't pay attention, or I just don't really give a damn about what's going on. I do give a lot. That's why I'm here, to contribute. And as I stated before, when we were talking like the downtown and other places, until I had my last stroke, I didn't realize how many things were barriers to a lot of people that have disabilities. And I think it's extremely important that we do not put any barriers to anybody who would like to serve on the city council, irregardless of what their physical liabilities may be.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Workman?
Thank you, Your Honor. Sticking tonight. Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to make a motion to amend the amendment and ask that instead of if able, we change that to may stand. And I have some reasons for that, but
Second.
I'm not sure I understand.
Yeah.
Could you,
in-
remember, may rise in her place if able, take out the shall?
I thought it was changing to shall rise if able, yes, so
Yes.
taking that out
And-
to
and replacing it with may?
may stand.
Thank you, Counselor.
Yep,
So replacing the word shall
with
with
may.
the word may.
Yes.
Is that the full amendment?
Shall rise. So she wants to have it be may rise in her place.
Yes,
Seconded.
We have a motion, a second, so the motion to amend this from Councilor Workman, seconded by Councilor Williams. The amendment is open for discussion.
can I just go about explaining why I'd like?
Certainly.
Yep. As you know, I spoke about this at PLD for a little while. I won't make it as long, but I want to make this amendment for many of the sentiments that Councilor Roberts just mentioned. Being on the chair of the MDEIB Coalition, it's just the most inclusive term and way to address this. I've heard from a lot of constituents over this. They're not mad that we're discussing the topic. They're actually surprised that it's taking so much time and discussion. A lot of people find that it should be a no-brainer change for many of the reasons I outlined last week. And I'm hoping that we can come to an agreement on this and stop talking about it. Thank you.
Further comments? Councilor Williams?
Yes, just to say, thank you, Councilor Workman, for that amendment. I agree that it's a good amendment. It makes, sitting can be the default, so you're not doing anything wrong if you're sitting, and yet everyone still has the opportunity to stand, which I think is a good way to do it. I expect a lot of us will continue to stand when possible, but we don't want to place a burden of expecting people to ask for an accommodation when we can just give it to them. And I think this is it's an important thing for the city council to model to other organizations in our community of how we provide accommodations to people. Thank you.
Okay, Councilor Jones?
Thank you. I didn't like the original amendment to begin with. I thought standing should be an unwritten policy that you do as recognizing the dais when it's time to speak. But this is a good compromise, so I'll be voting for this amendment.
Other comments? Counselor Haas.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yeah, I think what holds us together with mutual respect is that we obey these unwritten rules of order. As we dress well when we come here and we address each other with respect, we're not going to find anybody or throw anybody out. Well, we are going to throw them out if they disrespect somebody, but something as simple as this does not need to be written. So I'm in favor of it.
Any further comments from counselors? Counselor Chadbourne.
I didn't plan on speaking, but I guess I would just say either way gives somebody the option to stand or to sit. And may sounds more optional, and shall sounds more directional. But I feel like either way, because we have the if able in there, still allows somebody to make a choice. And either way, it's at the discretion of that counselor. So I could go either way.
Counselor Remy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to clarify the amendment. I believe it actually strikes the words "if able," so it would be a member may stand and shall respectfully address the mayor would be the complete sentence if that was how I heard the amendment. It removed that whole strip. My question, I guess, is...
Can we confirm that with the counselor?
Yeah.
Counselor, was that your intent to remove if able? Just have it
A
may
member may rise and shall may rise in his or her place and shall respectfully, yeah.
Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you. I thought I heard that and I heard something different, and that's why I wanted to confirm because I wasn't sure. My question is, do these become effective like as we're voting them in?
Yes.
Thank you.
Sit down.
All right, so everybody's, for clarification, everybody's got the difference here. It's either as printed here or replacing the word shall with may and deleting the words if able. I think either way we're getting to the same point. Seeing no further comments, would the clerk please call the roll? This is the motion, and just for clarification,
This is the motion on the amendment.
on the amendment, and the
Then we
amendment
have
is a majority vote?
Yeah, the amendment would be a majority vote, because you're not finalizing the vote.
Right, right.
As a roll call.
By hand.
You could call for a roll call.
Just a point of order, Your Honor, just, the amendment just requires a hand.
Yes.
It doesn't require roll call.
That's right.
All right. By a show of hands, all those in favor of the amendment as presented, please raise your hand. Okay, we have a unanimous vote.
Thank you, guys.
All right, we're back to the amended motion. Any further comment on this? Seeing none, now we'll do a roll call. Need a 2/3 vote.
Counsel Bosley?
Yes.
Counsel Tobin?
Yes.
Counsel Remy?
Yes.
Counsel Filia?
Yes.
Counsel Williams?
Yes.
Counsel Haas?
Yes.
Counsel Jones?
Yes.
Counsel Madison?
Yes.
Counsel Roberts?
Yes.
Counsel Favelis?
Yes.
Counsel Lake?
Yes.
Counsel Workman?
Yes.
Counsel Chadbourne?
Yes.
Counsel Powers?
Yes.
Counsel Greenwald?
Yep.
This motion carries unanimously. Counselor Bosley, you're on a roll.
This
Yes.
recommendation is for the adoption of Amendment Number 3, which deals with Section 15, voting and conflicts of interest.
And recognize Counselor Bosley for a motion.
Thank you, Your Honor. Move to carry out the intent of the committee report.
Second.
Moved by Counselor Bosley and seconded by Counselor Jones. Counselor Bosley for the committee.
So this this one is relating to our voting and conflict of interest rule. And you could see that this came up as a mixed vote, so I expect some conversation about this tonight. But the basic idea of the change in this one is to further define the family members, and that definition becomes 18 years of age or older that are living in a counselor's home. And then it also requires that there's a disclosure on the annual disclosure form of those members for their boards and commissions and employment. And this change is basically, in essence, to provide the greatest amount of transparency for the public and for each of us to be able to follow up on any special interest that might be occurring, even if it's unbeknownst to the counselor that they might have a swayed opinion based on some familial relationship, that we can all just keep each other as honest as possible, as well as, members of the community can keep an eye on what we're doing and what our interests in the community are. And I'm in favor of as much transparency as possible in this one, but the committee did come back mixed, so I'm hoping for some good discussion on this tonight.
So, that invitation being offered, any further discussion from committee members? Counselor Williams.
Once again, I'm opposed to this. I just think it goes a little far. I appreciate the need for transparency, but everything's a balance, and that transparency is coming at the cost of the privacy of our spouses and children. Neither my spouse nor my child ran for this office. I ran for it. This is on me. I don't necessarily feel comfortable sharing their employment or activities information with the public, knowing how sometimes members of the public react to things that we do here on the council. I would just like to keep them separated to some extent. So I will be voting against this.
Further comments? Okay, we got Counselor Jones.
I'm going to stand.
Thank you.
I may. I agree with Counselor Williams that sometimes it's not necessary to be putting out there for information what where your child is working as a part of a public document. And also the fact that although in the state of New Hampshire we don't recognize the term common law, you can be a cohabitating partnership for 30 years. And I think that's the same as being married, but that's not included in this process. So I think we're kind of missing a step here. So I'll be voting against this amendment.
I remember Jeb Bradley frequently saying, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Counselor Tobin.
Thank you. I had mixed feelings about this for a while and maybe didn't really have strong opinions, but the more I thought about it, the more that line seemed a little bit foggy, in the sense that marriages can be very different. How people manage their finances can be very different. People, how much they weigh their partner's perspective can be very different. And the expectations within a marriage can be very different. Also, outside of a marriage, people share finances. People who are living together, people invest in one another and weigh each other's opinions very differently. So I think that this actually, if I were reading this, could confuse me. If I were reading that someone's spouse had a list of, they were involved in these organizations, I would almost assume that that would mean that the spouse is also invested in those, and that I would almost hold them accountable for speaking to that when maybe they don't actually agree. So I will be voting against it.
Counselor Haas.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yes, I think transparency is of value everywhere. I think as much as we can put out there about what might drive our interests and our concerns is worthwhile putting into the public record. And it's not like these public records are going to be explored and going to be broadcast everywhere, but they will be there if anybody wanted to confirm why we voted in one way or another. There's too much of hiding in anonymity today in social media with the posting we see, and we see how bad that all works. So I think as much as we want people to stand up for what they say and back it, transparency as to what surrounds them and their family is an important part of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Favelis?
It's either way, it's fine.
I will stand at this point as well, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. We'll see how I'm feeling a little bit later on into the meeting. Long agenda. I still am undecided at this point after hearing the discussion so far on this, but I guess I'm kind of imagining a scenario in which a counselor maybe suggests on the floor that another counselor may have a conflict on an item because of a spouse's disclosure, because of a adult child's disclosure. The prospect of that makes me pretty uncomfortable, that a counselor's family would be brought into discussion on the floor. And so I am open to some discussion the other way, but I think that's going to be a real big hang-up for me on this.
Counselor Mosley?
I wasn't actually planning on talking about this tonight because I feel like I've repeated this story many times, but I just want to articulate it one more time. I think that, you know, we all have different experiences that make up the judgments that we make. And in the course of my time on council, I have been exposed to, and I want to preface this by saying I don't think any of these actions were malicious, I think in intent, but I was exposed to a counselor who offered an amendment to increase city allocation of funds to an organization that they were on the board for. I've been exposed to a counselor supporting an amendment to an allocation of funds for a board that a spouse was on the board for. And I personally have had to recuse myself and have used the conflict of interest to recuse myself from being put in a position where I was making a judgment on an employer of my spouse's a request from the city for an employer of my spouse. And in all three of those instances, this disclosure probably would have A, reminded the counselor that they needed to ask for a recusal if it hadn't been something that they were aware was a pecuniary interest of theirs in the first place. B, would have allowed the rest of us to have had an opportunity to be aware of what our fellow counselors' interests are in case someone might need a reminder. And C, protect us from being put in a position where we have to make decisions for employers of our spouses. I think that as much as I can understand what Bobby's saying, and it's not great to put these family members on blast, it's also our jobs to protect those relationships between our spouses and their employers. And as counselors, we have a higher level of scrutiny than our family members need to have. And I think when those decisions come down, we should be recusing ourselves. And this form just, for me, makes me feel comfortable that you guys are all aware at the start of the year where I stand and what topics I'm going to be asking to be recused from. And I really do think that when we make these decisions to run for office, and when you are in a marriage, that's a family decision, I would hope, that your spouse is fully understanding of the commitment of time, and the public scrutiny that you're going to be put under. You know, I'm fully aware of it, my children are fully aware of it, and I think that there's no avoiding it once you put yourself in the public eye.
Thank you, Counselor. Seeing no further discussion, Counselor Chadbourne.
I think standing now is a habit for me. So I think Counselor Bosley makes some very good points. I think Counselor Williams does too, and either or again. But the form that we currently use addresses the first part of Counselor Bosley's, concerns, whereas we have to put down like any organizations that, or boards or committees that we're on, so that clears up any question about conflict directly. And we are under scrutiny, and no matter how transparent we are, they come for you. They find stuff, and it's like you never know when you're gonna be attacked, I guess I should say. But I feel if I was the spouse, I would not be comfortable. And I would leave it to my partner to say, if something came up, to address it at that point, but I wouldn't want my information to be public. So I'm leaning towards Councilor Favolis and Councilor Williams.
Counselor Haas.
Thank you, Your Honor. I had two more thoughts on this. One, by putting this information into a public record, we're protecting ourselves against what people may infer or put out in rumor or put up on anonymously on social media to say about us or our spouses or our family as to what our motivations are. And it's much better to have open transparency saying what exactly it is as declared at the beginning of the year. Second, I also would challenge everybody to think, what would the citizens of Keene think? We're talking about ourselves. There's a lot about us here. I don't like any of that. I like what the citizenry would want, not what we would want. Thank you.
Okay. Had a pretty good discussion. Seeing nothing further, would the clerk please call the roll? Again, we're going to need a 2/3 vote on this for it to be adopted.
Councilor Bosley?
Yes.
Councilor Tobin?
No.
Councilor Remy?
Yes.
Councilor Filio?
No.
Councilor Williams?
No.
Councilor Haas?
Yes.
Councilor Jones?
No.
Councilor Madison?
Yes.
Councilor Roberts?
Yes.
Councilor Favolis?
No.
Councilor Lake?
No.
Councilor Workman?
Yes.
Councilor Chadbourne?
No.
Councilor Powers?
No.
Councilor Greenwald?
It doesn't matter.
Yes.
I believe we got 6 votes against, I think.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 no.
That's what I have.
Okay, the motion fails.
Going forward now, the recommendation from the committee is also a 3-2 vote, and it deals with the section 25, communications.
Yes. Counselor Bosley with a motion.
Move to carry out the intent of the committee report.
Second.
Basically, I can't 100% tell you what the intent of the committee report is at this point with this amendment. I'm going to talk about a few things that we discussed during this time and what I would like to see and what our committee was hoping that would happen this evening is there would be a little bit of conversation here giving PLD some direction before I later move to have this amend this motion to have it sent back to committee. I don't think it's ready for us to vote on tonight. There were a lot of really great points that came up at our PLD meeting, and it was a very long meeting. And we came up with an alternative to the original wording, but I don't think it was fleshed out enough for us to really make a decision that we think that that's what this council should be considering tonight. So we're hoping that the body will give us some recommendations and some direction on what direction you'd like to see PLD go in. So basically, amendment number 4 for section 25 has some housekeeping items. Number 1, the clerk will accept communications up till 4 p.m. on Tuesday following a council meeting. That's a pretty easy one. If there is language that is defamatory, personal, or argumentative, that the communication will not be accepted by the clerk. I spoke with the clerk earlier today, and I also wanted to point out that there's section 26 of our rules of order does not allow the clerk to discriminately dismiss communications. Our own rules require that the clerk co-op with the mayor and the city manager, and by default of policy, she includes the attorney as well. So there's a separate meeting and discussion about every communication before a decision is made on what the result of that communication is going to be. But the larger issue here before us tonight is that the council has showed some interest in codifying a policy on national and international issues. And I definitely support us having a policy on this. In the absence of a policy, we've had sort of a procedure that we've followed. And I think that if you don't have a policy, that you leave yourself open for people to question your commitment to your actions. And so I do think we need to come up with something here, and we wrote something that the committee reviewed. But what we came across is that the only way for a counselor who was disinterested in something being accepted as informational because it was international business or national business or non-germane to the city of Keene, was that they would have to come before council and ask for a suspension of this rule. And in order to do that, like we've seen a bunch of times tonight, they would have to have a 2/3 majority. And that's a super high bar. And so we have tried to come up with some options about what some alternatives could be. Tonight we allowed the city council with a 6-membership group to call a special meeting. So maybe we can come up with some verbiage that would allow 6 people, 2 from each committee, to co-op and bring something and put it on the agenda that would have not been formally allowed. Or maybe we can come up with some way of making it a simple majority, or the idea of having a certain number of the registered voters in the city of Keene petitioning the council would allow for an item to be placed on our agenda. So there are some options here of a way to circumvent this as a general policy that PLD wants to consider before we come back and talk to you. With that said, I'm going to let you guys come up with your thoughts on that, and then we'll circle back to where this ends up.
Councilor Remy and then Councilor Filio.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wasn't aligned to the statement that it would take a suspension of the rules to pick up an item, because section 26 allows for except as otherwise provided by these rules, items of business not resolved to the satisfaction of their sponsor may be placed on the council agenda by the mayor, any member, or the city manager. Basically saying that any member could place it on the agenda if they weren't happy with how it was handled.
Well, you're talking about section 26 of the rules.
Of the rules, yeah. It's basically saying that it would be referred in a certain way, which is what we're doing. The clerk, through this normal process under 26, would be referring it as non-germane.
That would be 25.
Yeah, right. Rule 25 and Rule 26, they're 2 different rules.
It can't be read together. Okay.
Well, that's the problem. That, the specific language would control over the general, and in Rule 26, that's sort of a general language with respect to what happens to a communication. But in 25, it would be specific, so you would follow that language. Whatever that language is that you finally decide on, if any.
Hey, Councilor Filio.
Thank you, Your Honor. Well, I know the council, especially PLD, have worked hard trying to create a new mousetrap here. I think this is a case of it's not broke, don't fix it. And I think that's what we have here. If you look at the process we've had now and we've had for a long time, at this point, it comes to the mayor, and the mayor makes a decision what committee it goes to, or does he accept it as informational? And it's worked well. Now, there's been a couple of examples where, the mayor has said, I want to accept this as informational. We can supersede that just by going to section 13 of our rules of order, which is called rights of appeal. If the mayor says, well, I'm going to send this letter, we're going to accept it as informational. Any one of the 15 can stand up and say, I appeal the ruling of the chair. That person explains their disagreement with the chair. And by the rule of order, two people speak. The person challenging the chair and the chair. And the person challenging the chair explains why they think it should go to committee. The chair says why they think it shouldn't go to committee. The vote is then taken by the council, but it's a simple majority. So we've already got it in the rules of order. We do not be creating a new mousetrap. The rule of order set up right now works. And it doesn't take 2/3. It doesn't take a roll call. If a simple majority of the council decide they disagree with the mayor, this letter should go to a committee, it goes to committee. We don't need to change anything. It's already in the rules of order. Thank you.
Counselor Madison?
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm not sure if Councilor Filio remembers that meeting. I believe he fled through the door over there. But that's actually what happened when the last non-germane item was brought before the council. It was challenged by Councilor Roberts. I'm sorry. It was challenged by Councilor Williams. You know, he was unable to get a second, so we did do it through the method that exists now. Frankly, I don't think it works. I think it's been something that's been discussed in the council. I think it's something I know I've heard from my constituents about. I know some of you have heard from your constituents about, and I think we do need a new policy in place on how to deal with it. Councilor Williams and I were able to have a good conversation during the meeting, during the PLD meeting, in which we would establish a threshold of 50 resident voters of the city who would sign a petition, and that would bring a non-germane item to the council, which would then be automatically referred to a committee in the event it had 50 signatures from residents of the city. I think that's a good way to go forward. I think that's something we should discuss again at another PLD meeting. I think a good idea would be to refer this back to PLD so we can discuss it a little more, even though I'm not one to have a lot of meetings. I'm eager to not have very many meetings. I think that this is worthwhile to have another conversation about.
Hey, Counselor Remy, then Counselor Tobin for the first time.
First time, you do first.
I think in general, I really like the idea of staying as much within the scope of what we can do as possible. I think that I have sometimes read communications and I've hoped that there was something in there that would point to how it was impacting residents in Keene, so that that could be an action that I could do something about. So with certain things that happen in the world, sometimes one population may be impacted more, and so maybe there's an extra layer of protection or awareness that we could be contributing locally to that. I can't help but think that anytime we are discussing a lot of things that we can't do something about, those are the times that we're not discussing the things that we can do something about. And a stop sign may be boring, but those are the decisions that we're empowered to make. I also like the idea of, I don't think it's fair to expect the city clerk to sort through all communications and make that judgment and weigh that back and forth on her own. And I would love to see some aspect of education, because I do think that a lot of people, including myself at times, have not known which issues are local, which issues are federal, which issues are state. So not that I would want to see them dismissed, but I think there could be an opportunity to educate when someone sends a communication about something that is not something that we can do, that the next step would be to say, this is really a federal issue and this is how you contact that person about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Remy still?
Just quickly, I disagree with the idea that it's not broken. We did have a member of the public get arrested at that meeting as well, so I would say that something's broken if that has to happen, so. I think we need more clarity in what our position is on it so that that doesn't happen.
Counselor Workman?
Thank you. I'll sit just because I made such a stink about it. I just want to note that this change would allow for the public to be heard in a more fair and measured way. I agree with Councilor Madison and Councilor Williams' suggestion of having a threshold of a number of Keene constituents. I think as a council, we've all gotten really comfortable having, short meetings more so than not. No one wants to have longer meetings, but at the same time, we're elected to do that and listen to the public, and we may not always like it, but if we're taking more communications, then, we're gonna see more than the 4 that we saw tonight. But having them referred to a committee also opens up the dialogue, because sometimes on the surface, a petitioner might come in with a specific request. And if we take that as informational, we're shutting down the conversation. If we refer it to a committee, they may leave with a compromise. And, as we have a back and forth with committee members and the petitioner and input from the other community members, sometimes we come to a whole different motion and recommendation. So I don't think that cutting off the communication and education to us as counselors is worthwhile to ourselves as council and the community.
Counselor Greenwald?
Thank you. Let's see, we can sit, we can stand, we can roll, we can turn our microphone on. Okay, just want to spin it a little differently. We are basically hired to deal, I said, with basketballs, potholes, local issues. I do not want the council to be used by individuals that want a forum for their issues where they know that nothing we say or do is going to make any difference. They're going to have the platform to speak what they want. It was an interesting letter to the editor. I don't know if you caught it. It was very short. It said, Netanyahu and whoever read in the newspaper that the Keene City Council was taking up the whole issue, and therefore they better solve it quickly because we're in on it now. I do not want my time to be sucked up by those who want to use us as a platform, basically, for their issues. Whether you pick on 5 counselors to bring forth an issue, or 6, whatever formula you like. Council Filio is right, it has basically worked well. Okay, we hit a hot one this time. It didn't work so well. You could always move to suspend the rules, whatever rule we come up with, to bring forth the issue if you really, really want it. But, again, I think we basically have enough on our hands to try to take care of the city, to try to maintain a reasonable tax rate, all these things that are really germane to the city of Keene. I've heard from constituents just the opposite, saying, what the heck are you talking about? Deal with the problems in Keene. You're not doing such a great job anyway with all of them, but focus on what we can do.
Counselor Favelese?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say briefly that I would support at this point sending this back to the committee. I'm cognizant that this came out with a 3-2 vote. I do think that there are I don't want to comment on the merits of some of the ideas hanging out there from the committee without having a final draft in front of me, but I do think there's further discussion to be had here. I certainly have heard from constituents on both sides of this issue. I don't see a problem if PLD would like to spend more time with the rules of order, I say more power to you all. And so I would support a motion to recommit.
Hey, Counselor Bosley?
All right, at this point, I'm going to just move to amend the motion to have this referred back to PLD.
We have an amendment. Let's see.
Well, actually, it's not an amendment.
It's
Not an
It's a
amendment.
motion to refer.
It's, I'm not amending the original
No, you
committee
can,
report.
a motion to refer takes precedence over the main motion,
Okay.
so you can just move
Motion to refer.
And, and-
Yes. Yes.
And that will take a simple majority.
Simple, yeah.
And it's still debatable,
Yes.
Counselor? Okay, Counselor Haas.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yeah, I think that's the intent of what PLD wanted in presenting it tonight. The split vote shows that we had much discussion on it. I couldn't agree with Councilor Greenwald Moore and Councilor Filial. But as Councilor Greenwald pointed out, it did hit a hot button, and maybe it didn't work that well this time. So even if we just go back to PLD and revisit the existing process and determine that, yeah, well, this does work, and let's reinforce the parts of it that will make it work better in the future, that's worth doing. So I think that's our intent here tonight.
Counselor Bosley.
And just to follow up, sitting cat for you. If we don't refer it back, if we said no to this, we would lose our housekeeping items. So somewhere or another, I hope you guys will let us clean this one up.
Counselor Madison.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yes, please send this back to PLD.
Please.
I'm very eager to have more work. I'm kidding, but it's worth more discussion. We've clearly hit a nerve. Our PLD meeting did bring out a number of people from the public, so our constituents are concerned about this issue. And even though our job is, the roads and commodes, as they say, our job is also to represent our constituents and their interests. And there is a public interest in this matter, and I think we need to explore it as far as we can. And I really hope people look at it with an open mind, because I just want to, just to remind everyone, at the start of the conversation on this agenda item, Councilor Williams and I were on opposite ends of the spectrum there. And by the time we were over, we kind of agreed with each other. So look at it with an open mind, really think about it, and I really want to encourage everyone to just kind of pay attention to the PLD discussion, participate if you can. Thank you.
Counselor Jones.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll agree with sending it back, but I would ask of staff, if we do send this to PLD, if staff can present to us the way staff goes through each proposed resolution when it comes to the city, and so the taxpayers get a good understanding of what they're paying for, because there's a cost of every step this goes through that the taxpayers end up paying for. And I think they should have a right to know that part of it too. So I'm okay with it going back, but I would like to see, and we can't put dollar signs, of course, but we can understand the value by hearing the different people that it goes through. Thank you.
Counselor Chadwin.
I just have a question for the attorney. So we have this issue of not being able to speak at committee meetings if there's too many of us.
There's a quorum.
And
More than a
so
quorum.
if we're sending it back, let's say more than, I don't know, how many would it have to be, 8?
It's a quorum.
Yeah, so we wouldn't be able to speak at committee anyway.
Well, quite frankly, this is one of the reasons why I requested that you have this conversation this evening, because I wanted to get a sense from the city council at large about what you were all thinking about this at this point. That doesn't prohibit you from submitting communications to the committee chair, if you want to do that, individually without getting a response back or something like that. But this at least would open up the conversation at the committee level with respect to some of the ideas that they heard here tonight and whether to accept them or reject them. And I'll tell you quite frankly that there have been some proposals that have been floated that I need to look at in more depth with respect to whether or not you can do that or not. So that's the purpose of it. But I appreciate your comment, Counselor, and that's true.
The only tricky part about doing the, writing something is the back and forth, which is so organic, because then, there might be a new thought that you have once the discussion ensues, So, given that, I'm gonna make a statement. The city of the business of the city always should come first, but I also think, we're elected by our constituents to represent them, and if they have concerns, they should be able to voice them. I think my concern is that we get so many of them. I remember in the teens, like 18, 19, maybe 2016 to 19 or something, getting flooded with a lot of them, and it does take a lot of staff resources. I know particularly on when we discussed Sanctuary City and over 40 hours of the attorney's time. However, having said that, most of you probably weren't on the council, except for a few of you. But, we had on the state level, in the state of New Hampshire, there were no laws protecting trans. So they could be denied housing, they could be denied jobs, and even our own employee handbook. And so we were approached by I wish I could remember the name of the group, but it was a state, but it also was beyond the state. And the state legislative body kept tabling it. They didn't want to do anything. So this group started going around city to city or town to town in New Hampshire and getting support that way. And there were at least 10 or 12 cities that signed on, with Keene being one of them, and former Councilor Jacobs and I brought it forward and championed it. And we even requested that the handbook for the city of Keene be changed to protect anyone who is trans or was transitioning. And the handbook was changed. And after so many cities signing on, the state legislative brought it up and it passed. And there's protection for trans in New Hampshire. And now you think, okay, this is just New Hampshire. So, but, think of the national level right now, what's happening, and the discussions of, different states and how they influence other states. Abortion, for instance, and wanting that to be, women's rights protected, but it's on the state level. So I feel like I agree, and in the sense like our city business, our potholes and our sewage and everything else is utmost important. However, we do have some influence, and what we do on the city level affects the state level and can affect the national level. So I think even, I just don't want to be flooded with them. That would be my concern. But I think that what Councilor Filio was saying, the way that it's already set up, we have that option to accept it as informational or listen and still accept it for informational. And I'm just saying this now because it'll give me time to think again by the time it comes up to committee level, and if I don't get around to writing a letter and I can't speak, at least something is on the record as far as how I think.
Yes.
I didn't want to cut you off, but as a point of order, we are discussing referring back to committee. not the issue.
Can you turn on your microphone, please?
Yeah, sure. We are discussing referring back to committee, and it should be a pretty simple issue. I think we could all tell stories until the sun comes up.
Councilor Filio.
Not to belabor it much longer, I just wanted to make a point, respond to what Councilor Madison said, saying, the system doesn't work. The system does work. The chair was challenged by one counselor, and the other 14 didn't make a second, because the other 14 decided that the issue wasn't worthy of bringing forward from that point. The system works. If one out of the 14 had said second, then it would have been discussed. The system works, just 14 counselors decided they didn't want to second it. So if any of you on the council were offended that it didn't get second, then look in the mirror because you didn't second it. The system's there and it works.
Questions called. I did want to point out, we'll call the question. Wanted to point out that it does say in here that not germane to either the state or the city. So a matter before the state would be considered germane to the city.
I was trying to tie
based on
in
this.
that the state affects national too.
I hear you. All right, we have the question called. Send this back to committee. That's the request. All those in favor? Unanimous vote. Thank you very much.
Good time.
Okay, and we have
Going
one
on
last.
We're at amendment number 5. This was a unanimous vote coming out of committee, and it deals with section 32, report by committee.
Move to carry out the intent of the committee report.
Second?
Moved by Counselor Bosley and seconded by Counselor Jones. Counselor
So here is another housekeeping item. This is a clarification in section 32 that just by policy of practice, we've always done this, but this just clarifies the language so that if there's ever any question, it's written clearly in our rules that after a public hearing, there will be no comment accepted at the following committee meeting. We've always done this, but it hasn't been specifically spelled out that way in this rule. And at that point, after the public hearing, the public would have had at least 2 times to have commented on the item under discussion. So that following committee meeting is strictly for collaboration from the committee to form a final recommendation back to the council. And I think this one's an easy pass.
Any further comments from committee members? I'm sorry, council members. Seeing none. the clerk
Counselor
call the roll.
Bosley?
Yes.
Counselor Tobin?
Yes.
Counselor Remy?
Yes.
Counselor Filio?
Yes.
Counselor Williams?
Yes.
Counselor Haas?
Yes.
Counselor Jones?
Yes.
Counselor Madison?
Yes.
Counselor Roberts?
Yes.
Counselor Papulis?
Yes.
Counselor Lake?
Yes.
Counselor Workman?
Yes.
Counselor Chad?
Yes.
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
Counselor Greenwald?
Yes.
The motion carries unanimously.
It takes us to our final recommendation. This is coming out unanimously from the committee, and it's dealing with section 33, resubmission of items previously considered.
And Counselor Bosley for a motion.
Carry out the intent of the committee report.
Second?
Moved by Counselor Bosley and seconded by Counselor Jones. Counselor Bosley.
Great, thank you, Your Honor. So this is another clarification. Our current practice is that we do not take up an identical item in the same calendar year. And this clarification in section 33 basically encompasses the wording to include items that we have accepted as informational, to consider those as something that the council has dealt with previously in the calendar year. And so it would prevent an informational item as coming back in the same calendar year to be heard by the council a second time.
Okay.
There was also the addition of the city clerk shall place the communications into the councilors' mailboxes.
that clear to everyone? It's there, yes, okay. Good, no more further discussion? Will the clerk call the roll?
Counselor Bosley?
Yes.
Counselor Tobin? Yes. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Counselor Remy?
Yes.
Counselor Filio?
Yes.
Counselor Williams?
Yes.
Counselor Haas?
Yes.
Counselor Jones?
Yes.
Counselor Madison?
Yes.
Counselor Roberts?
Yes.
Counselor Favelis?
Yes.
Counselor Lake?
Yes.
Counselor Workman?
Yes.
Counselor Chadbourne?
Yes.
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
Counselor Greenwald?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. And we can now move to items that came before the Finance Committee.
Starting off with the Finance Organization and Personnel Committee report relative to a 2025 Law Enforcement Substance Abuse Reduction Initiative grant. On a vote of 5-0, the Finance Organization and Personnel Committee recommends the city manager be authorized to do all things necessary to accept and expend the New Hampshire Department of Safety 2025 Law Enforcement Substance Abuse Reduction Initiative grant in the amount of $25,000.
Council Powers for a motion.
Thank you, Your Honor. I move to carry out the intent of the committee report.
Second.
Moved by Council Powers and seconded by Council Remy. Council Powers from the committee.
Thank you, Your Honor. Last week, we got back together after a little vacation period. After we got ourselves in sync, we moved on with a quick agenda. In the spirit of brevity tonight, I'll explain these for all of you. Captain Tenney joined us to talk about the Law Enforcement Substance Abuse Reduction Initiative grant. This money comes through the Department of Safety, New Hampshire Department of Safety. And for 2025, the city's being awarded $25,000. This is sort of an annual program that they put together, although the names may have changed based upon some of the sources of income in the past. The current name for it is Law Enforcement Substance Abuse Reduction Initiative. And we annually apply, and this year we're being awarded $25,000. And it's used for drug cases, significant drug cases that take a lot of investigative time. So personnel are assigned to it beyond a regular workday to bring these cases to a culmination. Finance Committee recommended unanimously that the city be authorized to accept this. We ask you to do the same.
Further comments? Councilor Williams.
Thank you. I'm going to be voting against this again, as I have for the past several years. And that's no shade on our police force. That's just to say that substance use disorder is a medical issue, and we can't arrest our way out of the problem.
I feel compelled to have to say that I get more correspondence on this kind of matter than on anything else. Concerns of citizens in the city with investigations and follow-through. So I just need, that's information. Further comments, councilors? All those in favor of accepting the report? Any opposed? 14-1.
And our second committee.
Somebody who never spends any time with homeless junkies.
And our second committee report, also from the Finance Organization and Personnel Committee, is another grant. This is the FY24 DOJ Burn Justice Assistance Grant. On a vote of 5-0, the Finance Organization and Personnel Committee recommends the city manager be authorized to do all things necessary to co-apply with the County of Cheshire and to accept and expend the U.S. Department of Justice FY24 Burn JAG grant in the amount allocated to the city of $4,684.
Councilor Powers for a motion?
Thank you, Your Honor. I move to carry out the intent of the committee report.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Powers, seconded by Councilor Remy. Councilor Powers.
Once again, this item was presented by Captain Tenney. This is our annual application, along with the county, team up together with the Sheriff's Department for the burn grant function of their programs that come from the Department of Justice through the state. And the purpose of this is to pay for the cost of operating the cell phone system that's used by officers in the field. without this additional money towards our budget, it'd be a little difficult to field the number of phones for the work that's done out there on a daily basis. And these phones save a lot of time and effort to gather information and communicate quickly, even with a victim of a crime. So it's probably one of the best ones that's come along with just a small amount that has a big gain. Unanimously passed by the FOP. Hope you do the same.
Further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously.
Finance, Organization, and Personnel Committee report relative to the acceptance of a donation. This is for the Greater Keene Youth, from the Greater Keene Youth Baseball and Softball Association. On a vote of 5-0, the Finance, Organization, and Personnel Committee recommends the city manager be authorized to do all things necessary to accept the donation of a 27 by 22 foot pavilion estimated at nearly $40,000 of work and gifts in kind by the Greater Keene Youth Baseball and Softball Association. This donated pavilion will be located at the far end of the parking lot near the Wheelock Park Youth Ball Fields.
Council Powers for a motion.
Thank you, Your Honor. Move to carry out the intent of the committee report.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Powers and seconded by Councilor Remy. Councilor Powers.
Director Fisk Hennessy joined us last week, and picture's worth 1,000 words. This pavilion that's being offered to the city shouldn't need much discussion. Let's just accept it. But this is a very nice example of how this city feels, the city's citizens and those who use the city on a daily basis feel about us. 27 by 22 pavilion, very nicely built, valued at $40,000, but is surely worth more than that. It's going to be built with items in kind, labor in kind, et cetera, by the Greater Keene Youth Baseball and Softball Association. And the donation will be in the far end of the parking lot, in the back of Wheelock Park, back towards those two fields. It'll be accessible to both, accessible to the parking area. It'll be accessible for anybody that needs a nice flat surface that can roll up to. So, excellent. So it provides that space for everyone, adds some more utility to the park, and it makes it a little more attractive for more tournaments for a good portion of the year. It just doesn't stop because the softball season or the baseball season's about to end. Committee unanimously recommends that you accept this. Thank you.
Further comments from the councilors? Seeing none. Call for the vote. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously.
And going further, Finance, Organization, and Personnel Committee report relative to the acceptance of the New Hampshire Juvenile Court Diversion Network SBIRT funding for youth services.
Councilor Powers for a motion.
Thank you, Your Honor. Move to carry out the intent of this committee report.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Powers and seconded by Councilor Remy. Councilor Powers for the committee.
Thank you. So Alyssa Bender from the Youth Services section of Parks and Recreation joined us. Annually, she brings forward this particular proposal, and this year it's a hefty increase in the income coming to us. With it is a little bit of a correlation in that the number of cases that they're handling that are coming out of the diversion court has increased, so it's all based on the number of people that come through the program. But it's without this money that's used to analyze and work with the student, juvenile, et cetera, it'd be awful difficult for us to be able to do it. So we're happy that the New Hampshire Juvenile Court Diversion Network for Youth Services is going to provide $56,488.04. We recommend that the City Council accept it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments from councilors? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Finance, Organization, and Personnel Committee report relative to acceptance of a grant for election equipment. On a vote of 5-0, the Finance, Organization, and Personnel Committee recommends the city manager be authorized to accept and expend the 2024 Rural and Non-Metro Election Infrastructure Grant from the Center for Tech and Civic Life in the amount of $20,000 to be used for qualifying expenses in the category of equipment and materials, technological components, or key human components that support the security of elections.
Counselor Powers for a motion.
Thank you, Your Honor. Move to carry out the intent of the committee report.
Second.
Moved by Counselor Powers, seconded by Counselor Remy, and Counselor Powers for the committee.
So $20,000 to help us operate the elections in the city of Keene. 5 voting locations, so you can imagine that there's a number of pieces of equipment and operations that need to be covered, and the law keeps changing, so it has made it much more difficult to really be on top of having the right equipment every single time. And we kind of pride ourselves on some of the best run elections around the state. So this is a nice little small chunk of money to be able to do some of the things that need to be done to keep up with it. One of the issues that happens from time to time, just like home, we'll have some Wi-Fi connectivity issues, so this will help work towards better equipment to deal with that. And another item within this, in the list of things that the clerk wants to get taken care of is the purchase of a tent to enclose the accessible voting machine that is now required for every election. So it helps us get the right amount of equipment to handle all the elections, city election, state election, federal election, and school board election. So we start thinking about that. That's a lot of election time and a lot of equipment to work. It's very helpful. Recommend that we unanimously accept this. Thank you.
Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Finance, Organization, and Personnel Committee report relative to a professional services contract for final design of the Lower Winchester Street reconstruction project. On a vote of 5-0, the Finance, Organization, and Personnel Committee recommends the manager be authorized to negotiate and execute a professional services agreement with McFarland Johnson, Inc. for an amount not to exceed $1,371,000 for the preliminary and final design phase of the Lower Winchester Street reconstruction project. Funding source split between General Fund Water Fund and the Sewer Fund.
Counselor Powers for a motion.
Thank you, Your Honor. Move to carry out the intent of the committee report.
Second.
Moved by Counselor Powers, seconded by Counselor Remy. Counselor Powers for the committee.
This is the final design stage of the Lower Winchester Street project, which is from the traffic circle at 101 going south to the city-town line, and then it extends a little bit further down to the large shopping complex, but all of that will be paid for by the town of Swansea. Previous work to this point is put together a program and the direction. Now we need some final design. So this would be a contract with McFarland Johnson, $1,371,000 for preliminary and final design for that phase. Our portion of it, and remember this is a program with the state, gets federal money, it's an 80-20 split. But that portion of it that we're dealing with, there are funds within the general fund, the water fund, and the sewer fund. This project is moving along fairly well in terms of the design, but construction won't start for several years, but we'll be prepared to deal with it as it comes forward. Unanimously approved by the FOP, ask you to do the same.
Further comments from the, just clarification, Counselor, that the city's portion of this is $274,000? 20% of the
Yeah.
total cost?
Sorry.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion carries unanimously.
Finance, Organization, and Personnel Committee report relative to professional services contract for the design of the water distribution improvements for Route 101. On a vote of 5-0, the Finance, Organization, and Personnel Committee recommends the city manager be authorized to negotiate and execute a professional services agreement with Clough Harbor and Associates for an amount not to exceed $60,000 for the preliminary design of water distribution system replacement on Route 101 and the Swansea Factory Road.
Counselor Powers for a motion.
Thank you, Your Honor. Move to carry out the intent of the committee report.
Second.
Moved by Counselor Powers and seconded by Counselor Remy. Counselor Powers for the committee.
Thank you, Your Honor. Don Lucio, the Director of the Public Works Department, who has just a couple of small projects going, explained to us that this particular project is the improvements to Route 101 to the degree that they're going to be able to deal within the right-of-way, from Optical Avenue up to Branch Road. Our water system and sewer system runs up through there. So this is the grand opportunity for us to be able to deal with it, in particular, the water system. So it needs to be designed and ready to go as the state is gonna go through and do their construction. We wanna have that improvement made. So we're kind of working a little bit ahead because, again, it's got a timeline on it. It's a little bit out there, but the preliminary design for the water distribution system and Clough Harbor is the one that's being selected by the city. Now, this is being presented to you as a sole source because the state's ready to move along. It would be fairly expensive for us to go out to bid again for a product that's such a small project. And CHA, Clough Harbor, has done work for us in the past, and they have done some other work for the city, for the state that's really running this project on the lower Winchester Street project. So they're approving it from their perspective, and they'd like the city to approve it and move forward as soon as possible. Ask the city council to approve it. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Manager?
Just wanted to provide a little bit more information, because this work is being done in conjunction with the state of New Hampshire. The state of New Hampshire actually did go through a competitive process, and they selected Clough Harbor, which is why we are also selecting Clough Harbor, so that their work can be combined with ours when the Route 101 project is being done.
Counselor Haas.
Thank you, Your Honor. Do we know the timing of the state's work on 101?
Can't remember.
TBD.
Is it, or is that something in the CIP that was described to us?
No, it's the state, it's a
Yeah,
state project.
yeah.
I can get you that information. I don't remember it off the top of my head, but they're doing all the design work now, so I would assume it's going to be in the next construction season, but I can't say that for sure.
Okay, seeing no more discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Finance Organization and Personnel Committee report relative to the reallocation of capital funds for the Recreation Center. On a vote of 5-0, the Finance Organization and Personnel Committee recommends the City Council reallocate $174,334 from the Municipal Building Capital Maintenance Project to the Brian A. Mattson Recreation Center renovation project.
Counselor Powers for the motion.
Thank you, Your Honor. Move to carry out the intent of the committee report.
Second.
Moved by Counselor Powers, second by Counselor Remy, and Counselor Powers for the committee.
We were joined the other night, Deputy City Manager Bohannon, to bring us up to date on the project at the Mattson Center. As you know, they've been working on this changes, development, making the place a lot better to meet the needs of everybody who uses it. And there's a lot of use at that particular building. However, each time they went out with a project that we wanted to get done, we were met with the same old story of it was very expensive, it was too much money, or not a good contractor to be able to do it. So a couple of phases have been taken care of, down to the phase where this money is going to be necessary to complete it in a reasonable amount of time. They've reworked it and not sacrificed any of the portions of the improvements that really are going to make the better place for all of us to use. But in order to do, once again, the prices are up there, but they can get it done if they move some money from the municipal capital building maintenance project account to this particular program. So it's no new money, we're not raising any additional money, we're just moving our money around to get the project done. It's unanimously approved by FOP, ask that you do the same.
Any comments? All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously.
Finance Organization and Personnel Committee report relative to Invest NH Housing Opportunity Planning Grant for short-term rentals. On a vote of 5-0, the Finance Organization and Personnel Committee recommends the council write a letter of support for an application to the Invest New Hampshire Housing Opportunity Planning Grant Program to hire a consultant to assist the city with developing regulations for short-term rental properties.
Counselor Powers with a motion.
Thank you, Your Honor. Move to carry out the intent of the committee report.
Second.
Moved by Counselor Powers, seconded by Counselor Remy. Counselor Powers.
Thank you, Your Honor. Jesse Rounds, our Community Development Director, joined us to explain that this particular step is asking the city council to authorize this, a letter be prepared and included with this grant process is going to be the next item you see. We think that if we're able to get this grant, there'll be a lot of discussions exactly how those elements of this particular program will be used, but it's important for us to get started. So get the approval of the city council and get the letter going. And it'll go for an application to Invest New Hampshire HOP grant program. And the ultimate purpose is to hire a consultant to assist the city with developing regulations for short-term rental properties. Now, we know there are so many different issues that are affecting housing. And we really need to take steps to make it much easier for somebody who has a sincere interest in building here to be able to do that. And at the same time, we hope that these discussions with consultants will generate some other sources of income through their knowledge that would be very helpful to those who want to build. So while we expect we'll have some more discussion as we get going further, we'd like this to get approved this evening and start moving forward. Thank you.
Counselor Favelis.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick question. I'm not sure that, I know there was some discussion about this at committee. I'm not sure I was clear from the minutes about who does the letter writing if we approve this. So.
I did offer,
Yeah, I think that it can be whoever the council designates. It's a letter that will let the state know the position taken by the city council. So it could come from the mayor's office indicating what your position is.
Counselor Favelis.
Stay seated for this one, because it's just a follow-up. Should there be something in the motion about who should write it?
Directing the mayor to write a letter on behalf of the city council.
Okay.
Yes.
Counselor Powers.
You want-
Friendly amendment?
Yep,
Friendly amendment?
I think that's.
yeah,
Yes. Okay.
that's in there.
Yes. Counselor Mosley.
Before we get to any sort of amendment, I just want to say that this, this short-term rental property ordinance has been sitting on more time at the joint committee because PLD recognized quite some time ago when we were writing the cottage court ordinance that this was important for our community, and there was some concerns about developers developing cottage courts and using them as Airbnbs, and us not seeing the impact that we were hoping to get through that ordinance. So I fully support anything we can do to move this process along. I know our community development department is up to their eyeballs in projects that we've assigned to them to get done for us, so I think this is a great add for us.
The friendly amendment, is that, can we accept that? All right.
You can do that by consensus. We can consider this a Scribner's error, and it should have said that the city council authorized the mayor to write a letter of support.
Recommends that the mayor write a letter on behalf of the city council. Okay?
Yep.
That is the motion. Further discussion? Council? All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously.
And our final report of the evening, again from Finance Organization and Personnel Committee, it's again Invest NH Housing Opportunity Planning Grant, this one dealing with housing opportunity zones. Recommendation is, on a vote of 5-0, the Finance Organization and Personnel Committee recommends the City Council write a letter of support for an application in the Invest NH Housing Opportunity Planning Grant Program to hire a consultant to assist the city with developing and promoting a housing opportunity zone program in the city.
And Council Powers for motion.
Thank you, Your Honor. Move to carry out the committee report,
Second.
which says that the city council will instruct the mayor to write a letter in support of this grant. And we're doing that because in the application, it says that the elected body has to be signing this, so we're jumping through all the hoops. We're gonna make this right. Thank you.
We have a
Second.
motion with some wording change that's acceptable. Any further comments on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor with the appropriate change, motion carries unanimously. And city manager,
Yeah, lots
with
of,
all the things you've got to show us,
you know, I have
tell us.
a lot of updates for you tonight. I'm sorry, it's getting kind of late, so I'll try to kind of go through them quickly. I did tonight pass around a handout regarding the master plan. I just wanted to remind everybody where we are in the master planning process. We started in February of this year, and the project is moving forward in 2 phases. The visioning phase is just about through, and we're going to be moving into the next phase, which is kicked off on October 5th, and there's a meeting at Heberton Hall. It's the summit on that paper, and everyone's we're encouraging every city councilor to attend. It's from 9 to 12 at Heberton Hall. This summit will be the transition point from visioning to the master planning process. And you can sign up on the website if you're listening from home. You can go to the front page of the city's website, and there's a link to bring you to keenmasterplan.com. So I'll skip the rest of those updates to make this a little quicker. The other update I wanted to share with you is the good work being done by our Keene Police Department social worker, Caitlin Mello. So far, she has had a total of 66 referrals. 21 of those referrals have been due to primary substance use. Her top referrals have been for mental health treatment, followed by resources for our unhoused individuals, and the third being substance use treatment. A large majority of those individuals with substance use issues also have underlying mental health concerns, which is why the referrals for mental health is higher. I don't think that's a surprise to us. Similarly, a large majority of the unhoused population are struggling with those same co-occurring disorders. And of the 66 referrals that she has done, 7 have been juveniles, and 2 of those juveniles have reported concerns regarding substance use. Referrals of substance use issues are to the Doorway, Avenues, Live Free, a new behavioral health use services for juveniles, Keene Serenity Center, Cheshire Medical Emergency Department, Smart Recovery Online, and many local and online AA meetings. She has an extensive list of resources for substance use treatment and have made connections with many local and state providers. So exactly what we were hoping for. I think it so far has been a great success. One barrier to accessing treatment has been health insurance, and the other is the willingness to follow through on the client's part. Again, not necessarily a surprise, but she's doing great work, and it's wonderful to be able to report that out. Also, the WOW weeks, the ward optimization weeks, are going well. We had our first one, we started our second one this week. In Ward 1, we had 98 requests, which were received through C-Click-Fix, and we're encouraging everyone to use that app. It's a great way for us to track issues that people are reporting, and then to be able to report out when they're done. The maintenance items that we have been completing include things like repainting crosswalks, replacing traffic signals, trimming roadside vegetation, sidewalk maintenance, painting hydrants, repairing leaking valves, cleaning sewer mains, repairing drains, park and trail maintenance, as well as general maintenance, including graffiti removal and removal of litter. So far, it's been good, and in addition to that, and I'm not sure how the Public Works Director felt about this, but other departments jumped on board with his idea because they thought it was so great. And we've seen Parks and Rec at these Ward Week nights, community nights, and we've seen community development. And our fire marshal's been doing one-on-one outreach in the neighborhoods as well, taking input. So I think it's really been a success so far, even though we are still early in the process. And I did send out several press releases while you were on break, but just for announcements to the public, since your last council meeting, Jason Martin has been promoted from acting fire chief to our fire chief. He has selected his fire chief, and Greg Seymour, who was here earlier, is now our deputy at the fire department, and the Public Works Director selected a new city engineer, Brian Ruoff, who started this week. He started on Monday. Also, during your break, there was a letter from a resident, Pat Walker, at 17 Thompson Road. She had written some members of the council on August 12th related to the replacement of a fence on her property as part of the city's Thompson Hill Road project. We were able to work with her to address her concerns. She wanted a fence that was more expensive than the in-kind replacement, and so she agreed to pay the difference. We have executed an agreement with her, collected the difference in costs for the more expensive fence, and the fence has been ordered. Therefore, I believe that issue has been resolved. She has one remaining issue related to boundary lines that is going to take several months for us to complete. There will be a process that we will need to go through with the city council to take a sliver of her property, and it will become city right away because of the location of the wall. And when they began the work, the road was actually not in the exact right place, and so there was some work that had to be done as they were making these improvements. So there's one thing left, and so she's anxious to finish that out, but as you know, all these things take time, and we have to do survey work, and we have to work with the attorney's office to finish that. But I wanted to let you know we were able to deal with the fence issue. Also wanted to let you know, I mentioned at the last meeting about concerns related to call volume at the fire department. This week, the Keene Fire Department union representatives presented data related to call volume and the need for additional staffing. We are meeting again in 2 weeks. The plan is to review the staffing report that was created a couple years ago, and some city councilors were on that committee, and compare the data to our current data to determine what has changed since then. And I have also requested data related to call coverage by the county EMS system. So I'll keep you updated, but just wanted to let you know that these conversations are happening. Also, a quick update on the solar projects. The city has 3 solar projects we've been working on that, if you remember, Revision Energy was selected for these projects. So Revision Energy is developing all 3 other projects. The 2 small projects, one is at Rose Lane and the other's at Monadnock Cemetery, and they involve a small parcel of land to develop solar projects for local nonprofit off-takers. So these are not city off-takers. Our accounts are not being tied to this. These are for nonprofits. Revision is working with Keene Housing for the Rose Lane project and Cedar Crest for the Monadnock View, and Cedar Crest is due to the proximity of the Monadnock View and being able to connect, hopefully, for them behind the meter. In both cases, these are unusable parcels of property that will generate a small lease payment for the city and support a local nonprofit. These nonprofits will purchase the energy, and we could see these projects come online next year. The third project is a much larger project. It's at the airport, and that project is expected to be about one-third of a megawatt to offset a significant portion of electricity used at the airport by all of the airport users. This project is also looking at the possibility of EV charging for aircraft. The next step in the process for this project includes site survey and plan development, which will happen over the next couple months. And then it'll go to the planning board for review. So that project is another year out before we see any sort of construction happening. And then I wanted to just mention some creative work from our highway crew related to benches. So recently, we have faced repeated incidents of vandalism involving the benches on Gilbo Ave, with some even being uprooted and overturned. In response, our highway team, likely motivated by both the need to address the damage and their frustration with the ongoing issues, took the initiative to fabricate durable granite benches. Using extra blocks and recycled curbing from our material yard, they created new, more resilient benches. The posts have been securely buried for stability, and the tops have been affixed using exterior-grade construction adhesive to ensure longevity, so trying to make them as strong as possible. So kudos to Harry and his team for the resourcefulness and commitment to maintaining our public spaces. That's it for me.
Thank you, Manager. Lots going on. Good to hear. Any questions of the manager? All right, thanks for the updates.
Continuing on, we do have a memorandum from the finance director relative to the acceptance of donations. She's recommending that the city council accept the donations which are identified in your report, and that the manager be authorized to use each donation in the manner specified by the donor.
And we have a motion. Council Powers.
Thank you, Your Honor. I move to carry out the intent of the committee report.
Second.
Moved by Council Powers and seconded by Council Remy. Council Powers.
This report speaks for itself. There's another lot of great work by so many people that are very much concerned about how well we do in this community. So, you know, we have ice cream gift cards at Hannaford's to $1,000 from CNS Wholesale Grocery. So each of these donations has a purpose listed in the report, and I recommend that we accept these donations with gratitude to each and every person who has helped us out. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor, and thank you to these organizations that have made these contributions. Any questions, comments? All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
We have a more time report from the Finance Organization Personnel Committee. It is relative to a pledge of a donation from Jared Goodell for the purchase and installation of a Safe Haven baby box.
And more time is granted.
Going further, we're on to ordinances for first reading. So we start off with a memorandum from the Assistant Public Works Director. It is introducing a winter maintenance parking restriction ordinance, and it is ordinance O 2024-14, an ordinance relating to winter maintenance parking restrictions.
And that ordinance will be referred to Municipal Services, Facilities, and Infrastructure Committee.
And a second ordinance for first reading, this one coming from Community Development. It is dealing with minimum lot sizes in the medium density, high density, and downtown transition districts. And it is ordinance O 2024-17.
And we'll refer that to the Joint Committee of the Planning Board and Planning Licenses and Development Committee for a public workshop.
Now returning back to some of the standing committee agenda items from the Planning Licenses and Development Committee. We do have an ordinance for second reading. It is ordinance O 2023-16B. Recommendation from the committee with a one vote in opposition is for the adoption. And we have before us, get to it, ordinance O 2023-16B, an ordinance relating to amending the Land Development Code, permitted uses in the downtown core and commerce districts.
And I'll recognize Counselor Bosley for a motion. We'll file that report. Counselor, for a motion?
Move to adopt ordinance O 2023-16-B.
Second.
Moved by Counselor Bosley, seconded by Counselor Jones. Counselor Bosley.
So I believe this is the second time that we've gotten almost this far. And you're looking at a B version of this charitable gaming ordinance. What I can say is that I think sometimes things come before us with an idea, and we start to craft something, and then we bring in outside agencies and members of the public, and they educate us, and we spend some more time, and we try to do it better. So I'm just gonna, we've all heard the public hearings, we've all spoken about this many times, I'm just gonna give you the highlights. There's a definition, there are two parts to this tonight. So this first ordinance is the ordinance that deals with all of the specifics that relate to charitable gaming facilities. And the second one that's coming up after this is the definition. And it follows this because if we don't approve this, then we have to consider what we want to do with that definition. We don't want to have a definition in our land development code without an actual, any sort of meat to go along with it. So, but for what we're talking about right now, we have some use standards, only one per lot, parcels greater than 1.25 acres, portions of West Street, Winchester Street, Lower Main Street, Key Road, Ashbrook, and Kit Streets are the streets that we identified as developable commercial for this type of use. There are some distance requirements, 500 feet from another like facility, 250 feet from a place of worship, childcare, public or private school, single family or two-family home or residential district. That the minimum square footage for one of these facilities would be 10,000 square feet, which is the size of the facility that we currently see locally. And then this is a really heavy traffic use potential, so there are some screening, traffic studies, off-street parking requirements. And then lastly, there is a 2% parking requirement allocated to electronic EVV charging stations. So that minimum is a 2 parking spot minimum, or 2% of the required parking would be allocated for electronic charging stations. And looking forward to seeing what you guys think.
Motion to accept.
Adopt.
To adopt, yes. The resolution. Any further comments from the council? Councilor Pfefferles.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll stand for this one. In the interest of time, I had worked hard on some remarks today. I will just paraphrase and give an abridged version because I recognize the hour is drawing late. There are some parts of this ordinance that I like a lot. I have long believed, even before I got on council, that we should be preserving downtown parking, and that preserving downtown parking means preserving downtown parking that can actually be used by everybody, and that is not going to be taken up by a specific use or monopolized by a specific business downtown. So to the extent that this zoning ordinance that's in front of us would accomplish that, I support it. I also can, support some of the provisions in there around not having flashing neon dollar signs across from elementary schools. Right? I think there are some common sense parts of this ordinance that I like. That said, there's a lot about this ordinance that I don't like as well. I don't want to belabor this point. I've certainly shown up at joint committee and said this, that I think some of these restrictions are unfair. I think some of these restrictions target a specific business that some of us in this room and some of us in the community would not patronize in our free time. That's fine. I've heard some arguments that, and certainly heard at the last PLD meeting, that people are gambling irresponsibly and that irresponsible gambling is a problem. I don't necessarily disagree with that. People do a lot of things irresponsibly, including right here in the community. People can drink irresponsibly, and yet bars in the Land Development Code don't seem to come in for quite as much scrutiny as this use would. I do recognize that there has been a lot of compromise. It's been a lot of work on the part of PLD, the planning committee, or the planning board, excuse me, city staff, certainly members of the public showing up and getting involved. This has been a long process. And if this ordinance is going to take effect, then I do want to make sure that it is the best possible version of this ordinance, regardless of whether I end up voting for it or not. And there's one use standard in here that has bothered me from the beginning, since I first started reviewing it, continues to bother me, because even some of the use standards in here, the minimum square footage, for example, that I don't like and that I don't personally support, I can see how they're related to the use. I can see how they're germane to the use. The inclusion of an electric vehicle charging station minimum, when we don't do that for any other use in the land development code, when we don't have an overarching policy, although I do understand that the Energy and Climate Commission is working on something to bring forward to council at some point that would be an overarching policy for the land development code. We don't have that right now, and so singling out casinos as the only use where we're applying the standard, I think, is arbitrary, and our zoning code can be a lot of things. Our zoning code can include parts that I don't like, that individual councilors don't like, but it shouldn't be arbitrary. And so with that, I'm gonna look to the city attorney again, make him work hard tonight, for some guidance on what exactly the language I need to put around this is, but I would move to amend this proposed ordinance to strike the language requiring electric vehicle charging stations.
I think my microphone has decided to take the rest of the night off. I think what you're requesting is, from what I hear, is that you are not in favor of the parking and traffic standard that's at subparagraph 6 of the proposed ordinance, which says 2% or 2 of the required parking spaces, whichever is greater, shall be equipped with electric vehicle charging stations. And I think what I hear you saying is that you would like to just suggest a motion to delete that. Is that right? You can certainly make that motion, and if there's a second, then discussion with respect to the city council. I will have to say, however, that from my perspective, that's a material change to the ordinance, and it would require that it go back through the joint committee process for public comment at that point. But that's certainly up to the city council to decide how they want to do it. But that would be the proposed motion, would be to amend the ordinance to delete section 6 of the parking and traffic paragraph.
Move to amend the motion by deleting paragraph 6 of the parking and traffic use.
Second.
We have an amendment. Any further discussion on the amendment? Councilor Fadley.
If I could speak to it. Briefly, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I recognize that, that Chair Bosley, the PLD committee, the planning board have done a lot of hard work, and it's not my intent to needlessly throw this back a step in the process. I do think, though, that we need to be thoughtful about the process here, and this isn't about charitable gaming facilities, this isn't about electric vehicles, this is about the process, it's about how we should be applying it's about how we should be applying different aspects of our zoning code and to what uses, and whether or not we should be applying specific standards to specific uses that would probably be better for us to discuss having a policy that's LDC-wide around. And so I would urge the council, as painful as I know it is going to be for PLD and the planning board, and I do apologize, if this amendment passes, I would urge the council to join me in supporting this amendment so that we can get this ordinance closer to its best version. Thank you.
Councilor Lake.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I certainly understand the councilor's point about this being the only spot in the land development code where we would be putting this requirement in. He did allude to the fact that we did put this into our clean energy plan, that we would develop guidelines around EV infrastructure within the city. And so I know it's something that I've been investigating as part of the Energy and Climate Committee. And I think this is a good first step to actually get that into the land development code. And this isn't an uncommon piece of legislation around the country. There are cities and towns all around the U.S. that are putting this into their land development code. Very, very similar language to what we have here. So I think this is a good piece of legislation that we have here. And I don't think that we need to remove this from the language.
Thank you. Councilor Greenwald.
Thank you. Turning it on. Just questioning the city attorney. How material really is 2 EV parking spaces to the entire, all the other work for charitable gaming? I would think that could just be deleted, not run it through the whole process of hearings and whatnot.
I'm only stating my opinion to you. The city council can decide to do what it wants to do. However, the answer to your question is, I don't know that. The public had an opportunity to review this ordinance. The public may or may not have some opinion with respect to the electric charging stations. It is a fairly significant change, even though it doesn't sound like much, at least it is to me in terms of the substance of the information. So that's why I suggest that it would need to go back to the process. But if the city council decides not to do that, that's certainly up to you.
Okay, thank you.
what, I guess I'd ask, what would be the nature of the action? It's been suggested that we delete that. Is there a further suggestion?
Delete and return to joint committee.
I'm sorry, Counselor?
Delete that.
If,
section
from
and
my
return to
opinion
joint
is,
committee.
if you delete that, and the planning director is here in the room, you can talk to him as well, or the community development director now, and get his opinion on it, but it has been, and I think appropriately so, the practice of the city council, unless there's a fairly small change, a Scrivener's error or something like that, when you're going to delete a use standard from the ordinance that has been publicly vetted and the public has had an opportunity to speak to or not speak to at a public hearing, that it should go back to the process so that the public has an opportunity to do that. They cannot do that here. Whether it's challenged on that basis or not, I can't say, but the safest course of action from my perspective is to put it back into the process, and you can certainly ask the community development director for his opinion.
Are you suggesting then that the maker of the amendment incorporate that into the motion?
No. From my perspective, if you amend this, it needs to go back to the joint committee. But if you wish to put it in there to satisfy the counselor's question to me with respect to it, you could certainly do that.
I see Counselor Roberts, then Counselor Remy, Counselor Wood.
Yes, Your Honor. Like Councilor Lake just stated earlier, if you travel around the country, a lot of new developments, whether the hotel or business complexes or even housing complexes, are putting these charging station in. In some of the places, they are getting aid and tax credits from the government to do it. And we have a plan by a 2030 plan and a 2050 plan, and it's almost 2025. So I don't see why should be a one-off. It should be in every plan that we're going forward to be able to meet our goals. We're going to be hard pressed to meet our 2030 goal. Let's start, keep it in and move on.
Thank you. Counselor Remy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think I agree with everyone so far, which is hard because I know some people don't agree. I don't like that it's in here as a one-off. I wish it was in everything. I do think it would be a good practice overall. I also don't necessarily see it as being a major change because I don't remember any public comment to this particular piece through any of the process. Its existence or it not existing except for Councilor Favolis. Suggesting that it shouldn't be in there, and I'm not sure why the body, I don't remember even discussing to remove it when we were going through joint. I guess my question out of that is, instead of sending it to joint, could we send it to PLD with an open comment instead? Because if it goes through joint, it has to come back to us, then go to PLD, and then come back to us. Could it just go to PLD?
Excuse me, Counselor Workman, but I think Counselor Bosley interested in your perspective.
Just trying to keep up with the process here, and so city attorney, definitely jump in. Unfortunately, I think if there's a material change, the planning board needs to vote on whether or not it complies, the new change complies with the master plan, which is why it would have to go back to joint committee. I recall that it was really the planning board that was interested in this, and not as maybe there were counselors interested in it, but I do think that it was pushed more from the planning board, and I have noted several times my objections to the joint committee for this particular reason, because their membership outweighs the Planning Licenses and Development Committee in that forum. And so I think that there was discussion around this, and it was reduced to what it is now. What I would say is that originally going in, I agree with Councilor Roberts that this meets our, puts us in the direction of meeting our goals. And I think that's important for us as a council to move in that direction. But after hearing Councilor Favolis, if there is a recommendation coming from the Energy and Climate Commission on a plan for this to be implemented across the LDC in all of our uses. I think that that's a much more appropriate way of managing this issue than it is to assign these erratically to uses as they come up. And I'm going to go back to the decision that we made, and we spoke with our consultant about this a lot during the process of cottage courts. Councillor Madison was very concerned at the time about our cottage court ordinance and how that would be affected by Airbnbs. And if we could restrict inside the cottage court ordinance the uses of those properties to not allow short-term rentals. And it was the advice of the consultant to not muddy the ordinance with that type of restriction and to create an ordinance relating to the use of Airbnbs that covered the city as a whole, and we could make our decisions based on a larger community picture. And I think that's what we're getting at here, is that I don't want to see this come around for another 3 months on my agenda, but I would support Councillor Fabrega's plan to remove it here if it was accompanied with a plan to create a project to have the LDC start to find a way to include new developments and other uses, shopping centers, gyms, you know, any sort of new development that we see happening in the community. We can apply it generally across all of the new uses. That would be more appropriate.
Mayor, if you don't mind, the council makes a really excellent point. The planning board statutorily is required to make a determination as to whether or not the ordinance is in compliance with the master plan. I can't sit here and tell you that the planning board will make an opinion one way or the other on this, but that's why I'm suggesting that it really needs to go back into the process for that statutory reason alone.
Counselor Greenwell. Oh, sorry, Counselor Workman. I'm gonna, she's right.
I'll be brief, and thank you, Your Honor. Counselor Bosley highlighted a lot of what I was gonna say, so I just think without having a general LDC ordinance that addresses this, the optics make me cringe because it looks as though we're targeting one specific type of establishment. I understand the motives behind and the intentions of creating that, and that there is something in the works. But without one, I just don't feel very comfortable imposing this on one specific type of business at this time. So I'm hoping it can go back to the planning board for some more discussion.
Counselor Greenwell.
I yield to and agree with the superior wisdom of the city attorney.
That's only because it's getting late.
Counselor Madison.
Thank you, Your Honor. We've discussed this ad nauseum. This is a 2023 ordinance, and it's now, we're potentially looking at it being a 2025, hopefully, maybe a 2050. I don't know how long this is gonna go on for, because when we finally do get a version Z or version alpha of it, we're gonna find something else that we need to pull this, Lucy with the football 11th hour stuff with. I'm sorry, this needs to move forward. There's been ample time for counselors, there's been ample time for the public, there's been ample time for everyone to comment on it. I'm sorry people decided not to, and they're now waiting till 9:30 at night on the day it's coming before council to do so. But we've discussed this ad nauseum. It's time to move forward.
Counselor Haas.
Thank you, Your Honor. There's plenty of other differences in the use standards between different occupancies, and I wager, this is a new definition, a new defined occupancy. It's time to move forward into the future, which means bringing in electric charging stations where parking is required. And I will bet that whatever new occupancy comes before us, we will have an obligation to provide electric charging stations as part of the parking. So this is the first step in the direction that we're going to go into anyhow.
Counselor Williams.
Yeah, I'm in favor of including the electric charging stations. You know, parking lots have a lot of negative environmental impacts, and this is a way of mitigating that. I'm also concerned that if we don't have electric charging stations at the casinos, then when people go and spend their whole day and plug in their car, they're gonna have to go find some other charging station in the city to do that, which will you know, put a limit on our overall capacity. You know, we're looking for grants and probably gonna have to spend some money at some point to get these charging stations to happen, and this seems like, you know, a good way to start.
Not to relate to our trip recently, but good gosh, we saw charging stations all over Europe. All right, anyway, further comments?
So this is a motion to vote on the amendment.
Right.
Which is just a show.
We have a motion on the amendment to delete section E, what is it, section 1E6. All right, this is going to be a hand
It can
count.
be a show of hands, because it's just a majority.
And so all those in favor of the deletion, raise your hand.
And keep your hands raised, please.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We got
Randy.
Greenwald too. 8.
Okay.
And all,
Wait. Thank you, I'm just getting her to Kat and Tina.
all right, one last time.
Mitch.
All those in favor of the deletion, raise your hand. Yeah, it's still 8, just want to make sure that the
Yep.
clerk has that
Yep.
opportunity to note.
Yep.
And all those against the amendment, raise your hand.
And,
It's predictably 7.
yeah, I just want to go down though. Haas, and Madison, there, Chris, and Ryan, and Tom. Got it.
The amendment
Second.
carries. What is the next action?
Up to the council, but my suggestion is, just to make the record clear, that you at least have a motion to refer it back to the joint committee process. See if there's a second and a vote on that. If that fails, then there would be a vote on the main motion.
I would normally turn to Chairman Bosley for a motion.
To refer.
Second.
We have a motion to refer back to the planning board for further discussion and
Joint
action.
committee.
Joint committee. Joint
And the
committee
second was from?
of Counselor Jones. Okay, any further comment? Counselor Jones.
Thank you, Your Honor. Can we add, I don't want to add to the amendment, but what Kate said about addressing it at the LDC by the committee should be part of sending it back. That should be in the background notes.
I don't understand.
What do you?
As a,
Oh,
as
I
a,
see.
as an overall, and not just one specific entity. I think that's what Kate was alluding to, right?
Yes, and I'll make that clear at joint committee council.
I was going to suggest that doesn't need to be in the motion to refer. It's in the background notes at this point, and that'll be a subject of discussion, but for the PLD and the planning board at
That's
that
what I asked
point.
for, yes.
Yes.
Counselor Madison? No. Okay, we have a motion to refer back to joint committee. No further discussion. All those in favor? Got 14. We got 13.
8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
13 in favor. All those opposed? 2 opposed.
The bookends. All right, now I'm gonna get
Hey,
creative.
Counselor Madison?
May I, Your Honor? I hope those of you who decided this was the best time to discuss this, make your thoughts heard at the next meeting. Let's discuss it then, instead of this 11th hour, last minute, Lucy with the football, pull it away, you know, let's have a, you know, version Z thing. So please, 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 show up, make your opinion heard, at the joint meeting, at PLD, at planning board, at the several public workshops we're going to have on this matter, again.
So noted. Counselor Roberts?
Mr. Honor, just a hypothetical, what happens if the planning board says, no, you have to keep these 2 spots in? Do we keep going around and around circle until we get the planning board to change it?
That's not a hypothetical. It's certainly possible. The planning board does have to decide that the ordinance as a whole, including or not including this language, is in compliance with the master plan. That is their function.
Counselor Remy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To clarify, though, I think they'd have a hard time finding the ordinance as it stands not in compliance, because it's not, is it more or less in compliance with the master plan? It's, is it in compliance or not? So it's a kind of a black and white vote. It's not, it would be better if in the vote.
Counselor Mosley?
Just playing devil's advocate here, to the attorney, if this goes back to joint committee and there's some crazy thing that happens and the EV charging stations are left in, do we have to go, since there's been no official material change, do we have to go back through the public hearing process? Or could it come directly back to council?
It should go through the public hearing process. That is your process.
Okay, that's
To
fine.
appoint the joint committee, that's the process that has been established at this point.
Okay.
Unfortunately, maybe, but that's the process.
Hey, Counselor Families?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, so long as we're all sharing here. I can't speak for any other counselor. I can say certainly that the minutes of the PLD and Planning Board Joint Committee meeting will reflect my presence there, raising a question about the EV charging stations. So for the benefit of members of the public who maybe don't inspect the minutes of the PLD and Planning Board Joint Committee, I do want to make that clear.
Okay, I think we've directed this finally. Thank you for the discussion. We have,
No.
We have one more ordinance.
yeah,
Clerk?
we have one more ordinance on the charitable gaming definition.
Yes.
Waiting for the clerk.
Are we missing an vote now? We had a motion to amend, and we had a motion to refer, but I, and where's the motion to adopt
There
as
was an original
amended?
motion to adopt. There was an original motion to adopt the ordinance with the second. Councilor Favelis then moved to amend. We voted on the amendment, and then there was a motion to refer, which takes precedence over the main motion.
So there's no.
So there is no motion to adopt as amended?
No.
Correct. There's no.
There was a
there's no
motion to adopt, it was seconded,
Yeah.
it was amended.
Right.
After the amendment, there was a referral back, the referral takes precedence.
Disappeared.
Thank you. All right, one more. We got a planning license and development committee report relative to ordinance O 2023-17B.
No, refer it back.
This is coming in with a recommendation from the PLD committee unanimously to adopt, and we have ordinance O 2023-17B, an ordinance relating to amendments to the Land Development Code definition of charitable gaming facility.
Do I go through the whole process?
You should move to adopt.
Move to adopt ordinance O-2023-17-B.
Second.
So moved and seconded by
Um,
Counselor Bosley, seconded by Counselor Jones. Please,
So
the
this is the definition that would go in the definition section of the Land Development Code, and it needs to accompany the original ordinance, Ordinance 16. So without it, it's inappropriate for us to adopt this at this point. So I would also make a motion to refer this back to PLD.
Second.
PLD or the
questions?
joint?
PLD.
No,
No, it
PLD.
doesn't go to joint.
This is not part of the, technically part of the zoning ordinance. It does not go through the joint committee process. It should go back to PLD on the referral.
Okay,
All
All those in
I mean, if that, if that referral is voted down, what's the,
It's not, it won't be. Don't worry.
okay, then go for the vote. All those in favor? Referring it back.
Yes.
We've got, this is the same, please keep your hands up for a second. We've got 13 counselors voting in favor. All those opposed? 2 counselors voting against. Okay,
On to a resolution. This is a resolution in appreciation of Jason K. Thompson upon his retirement. It is Resolution R 2024-30.
and Counselor Powers for a motion.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would move to adopt Resolution R 2024-30. Second.
Moved by Counselor Powers, seconded by Counselor Greenwald. Counselor Powers?
Easy, boys. That's your bedtime. Yes, it is. We have a resolution here for Jason K. Thompson, who is now retired from the Keene Police Department. He came to the city of Keene 18 and a half years ago after serving 3 years in the Hinsdale Police Department. Very active member of the police department when he was on the street. Has a reputation for being able to communicate with just about anybody on any particular conditions. And to that point, he's at least one time received a life-saving medal from the police department. He's also received the captain's citation, a good citation. That's a good citation. He was a bike team member. His captain describes him as a quiet guy, hard worker, and required no supervision. You know, he's married, has 2 high school sons that are sports enthusiasts, and he likes to travel with them. So now he's gonna have a lot more time to travel around to the various sports, and hopefully they'll go on to college sports. But you also saw him a few weeks ago out at the charity game, fairly good softball player. He's had a lot of assignments in the police department. The last one he filled was the property officer. And that's a lot of responsibility, maintaining the property that comes in, needs to be used in the course of doing their business, and then ultimately back out of the system in some fashion. At the same time, he would cover shifts, and he was always available if he heard a call that was going on, and it sounded to him like it needed more people, then he went, he did his thing. So if you see him, congratulate him. I'm sure you'll see him around sporting events. Well-deserved proclamation in support of the city council. Thank you.
We need a motion, if the motion's made, we need a vote. Any further comments? All those in favor? The resolution is accepted unanimously.
And a second retirement resolution, this one for Mary F. Lay. It is Resolution R 2024-31, a resolution in appreciation of Mary F. Lay upon her retirement.
Counselor Powers for a motion.
Thank you, Your Honor. Move for the adoption of Resolution 2024-31.
Second.
Moved by Counselor Powers, seconded by Counselor Remy.
This one is in support and appreciation of Mary F. Lay. I think everybody has probably seen her once or twice here before the council doing some presentations. And she began her career 15 years ago here in the city, in the lab. And she held several positions within the lab, at the same time working closely with some other parts of the city system down there. And when Donna Hanscom got promoted to the Assistant Director at Public Works, Mary got the position as the lab manager. A lot of responsibility there, a lot of activity. She worked frequently with the student water science program. So you saw her face with that. Very much involved every day in important parts of the wastewater system, because all that testing is pretty important, and she did it very well. During COVID, it increased dramatically, and she stepped up to it and handled it very well. She advised the city manager, she advised the emergency management director of some of the things that she would see and what would make it more consistent with what we needed to do as a city. All this time, you learn something different towards the end when you find out about folks. She held the treatment operator license. She's licensed by the state of New Hampshire to operate that plant on our behalf, or anybody else's behalf, but, and did the lab work. She was always there as the backup when things weren't quite going the way they should be, or we were short an operator, a licensed operator. Should be congratulated on her retirement. In her retirement, she's heading back home to Wisconsin, and she's going to escalate her role as a grandmother and enjoy her retirement. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Any further comments? All those in favor of this resolution? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. We have a tabled item.
Yes, this item, by oversight, actually, was tabled from the July 18th meeting to the August 1 meeting, and we inadvertently forgot to remove it from the table, and I believe the mayor would like to see that happen tonight.
Yes, I'd like to ask for a motion to remove this from the table.
You have
No
the
need,
authority to do
I'm
it.
just gonna do that. I'm gonna remove it from the table.
Right.
And I'm gonna file this as informational.
Right.
No objection.
I'm gonna remove the request to
This
acquire
was
that
dealing
property.
with the Washington Street extension, perhaps you'll recall this. Conservation Commission asked us to think about acquiring it.
So we'll remove this item from the table and file it as informational. And that should conclude the actions necessary on this item. Okay? All right. There is no further business and no non-public session this evening. So, yeah. Seeing that there is none, we stand adjourned.